So what do Auburn's goals need to be for the rest of the season?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's a bonus edition of Locked On Auburn. We're joined by the Brad Law, co-host of Village Vice. We do a show together 3 times a week. Be sure to check that out over at the Barn Auburn's YouTube channel. Brad also with the Auburn Sports Radio Network, of course. Brad, I want to talk about the rest of Auburn's game because they do all seem kind of winnable at this point. But as far as the goals that are still on the table with this disappointing 2-4 start, you look at these upcoming games after the bye week and just the craziness that happened throughout all of college football. I still think there are some things that they can accomplish that are still on the table. It's just they need to do it. And unlike they've been able to do it against Cal and Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I think the word, if I had to, you didn't ask me to do this, but
No.
if
Hey,
I
Brad,
had
give me a word.
if I had to wrap it up in one word, it would be discipline.
Sure.
I think discipline. I think you look back at a couple of the games in the first half of the schedule and see the poorest timed penalties you could imagine. Penalties that extend the opponent's drives or penalties that keep Auburn from playing in front of the sticks, from playing with leverage and momentum offensively. And, it's got to be a goal. It's got to be a goal to continue to improve on first down so that you can get in these 2nd and 6, 3rd and 3 type situations where the RPO is most productive, where most offenses are most productive. So, 8-4 is still on the table because you're 2-4 now and you got 6 to go. You win them all, you're 8-4. And I think they are all winnable, but you can't win 6 games in one day. So
which game's the most winnable? So you got ULM, right?
Yeah.
We all agree that ULM is probably the most winnable. And then the Iron Bowl is probably the least winnable. I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I would guess that.
Yeah.
After that, what do you think the second most winnable game is now that Vandy beat Alabama? Does that one jump up a little bit, or is that the second most winnable?
I still think it's Vandy because I think outside of Diego Pavia, who, look, if Auburn ever should be hungry defensively to stop any quarterback at Jordan-Hare Stadium, it should be Diego Pavia.
Yeah. And
they have very clearly and loudly announced, like they've planted a flag right in the heart of the SEC by beating Alabama in Nashville. They're 3-0 at home this year. Yeah. They ain't sneaking up on anybody the rest of the year if they were before.
Right.
So, but I think that outside of the quarterback, the talent and the matchups on the field, the one-on-one matchups are still more in Auburn's favor in that game than they are in any other game.
So as far as winnable games, ULM, Vandy, are you staying home and going Texas A&M third, or are you going at Kentucky?
Probably going at Kentucky.
Okay.
And that's all relative. None of them are easy, They're not like Tulane over UAB.
We're saying most winnable. That's kind of what we've labeled this unofficial list. Most winnable. Yeah. ULM, Vandy, at Kentucky. I'm going to say at Missouri before I say A&M at home.
That's a good question. Yeah.
It's a thin line, but
it's so tempting because you just saw Texas A&M completely destroy, wipe the floor with Missouri. Wasn't close ever. Wasn't ever close. What is scary about Missouri? Now, scary is the wrong word. Spirit is not afraid. But what's impressive about Missouri, what you respect about them, is that they made a commitment to their running game. They said, we have Le'Veon Moss and we have a good defense. Well, what do you need to win? Both on the road and at the top level of the SEC. You need a running game and a good defense. They've got it, and they've identified that as who they are, and they're sticking with it. And that makes them a really big challenge.
Do you think with Auburn going to Missouri, seeing what Texas A&M just did to Missouri, you see them say, hey, Jarquez Hunter, hey, Damari Alston, first off, our bad for not using you. So sorry. We're going to do that to this team. We're going to do everything we can to allow you to eat. against Missouri. I don't think they change who they are. You and I talked about this on today's Village Vice. Like, I don't think Hugh Freeze is the kind of guy to just pivot away from what he believes in.
Yeah.
But it'd be hard to watch that tape and not think, yeah, we can do that too.
Yeah, and it would be hard to listen to post-game press conferences and then take those and carry them over into staff meetings and say, guys, we can run the ball on anybody at any time if we want to. Now, I think that you made this point when we talked earlier, that sometimes your success in running the ball comes because you call running plays in advantageous situations.
Sure.
Not enough guys in the box, or all the running back has to do is break one tackle, and therefore you're setting yourself up for more success running the ball. Whereas if you just go, well, look, just turn left, hand off, turn right, hand off with 8 in the box,
yeah,
it ain't going to go that well. So there is a balance to that, and I've never coached a game, so I don't know what it's like to try to feel that balance as a play caller like Derek Nix and Hugh Freeze have to do. So. But yeah, it is tempting, or would be to me if I were in that situation, to look at the yards per carry, to look at the drive against Georgia where Auburn runs it 6 times and scores a touchdown, all running plays on that drive, and not think, yeah, let's try to do the same thing. Work for them, so if it'll work for us. Work for Vanderbilt too against Missouri. They nearly pulled the upset in Columbia, running the ball, staying on the field.
Yeah, the Missouri close calls, the 2 times they went out before losing to A&M, it kind of, I don't know, with that context, it changes how you look at them. Like, they barely beat Boston College.
Yeah.
And then, was it double overtime against Vandy? Or I think it was double overtime. I'm not sure. It was overtime still against Vandy. It was a close game. And then, like, you get thrashed by A&M. I don't know. Going into the season, we talked about Missouri as this like favorite to make the playoff, and I don't think that's who this team is at this point. And so, Missouri goes on the road to UMass, which I said all summer is ridiculous. An SEC team should never travel to UMass. That's insane.
It's going to be a road weary team when Auburn goes in there in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I don't know. I do think the timing of this does favor Auburn, but I'm trying to figure out if that's legitimate or if I'm just booging.
Well, I do think back to the original question, though. That's the goal. I don't think you have goals for the rest of the season per se.
Okay.
I don't think you have a 6-game goal during the open date. I think your goal is to beat Missouri. And I understand that sounds like coach speak, or that sounds cliche, but there are too many parts. Like, you have too many young guys battling veterans for positions or playing time at certain positions. You have, you have guys like, all right, for example, let me use 2 guys as an example. Okay. Sylvester Smith and Caleb Harris. Okay. Those guys are in 2 separate phases of their college careers. One comes from a smaller school where, like, he played quarterback and DB, never came off the field. He wasn't facing very complex teams. And all right, Caleb comes from Thompson. Very different culture. Like, they're used to watching film and complex offenses and communication and not having to play offense too. And it's one thing. Well, they're both safeties. You're trying to bring them both from 2 totally separate worlds and get them to the same place. And those are just 2 players at the same position. You've got a team full of those kinds of stories that you're all trying to get them to this one place. That's what when you talk culture change within a program, that's what you're talking about. And I still think you've got a little ways to go, clearly, to get there.
Right.
So the goal is get closer to getting everybody there.
Yeah. And so, how do you go about that? That's the $1 million question. Let's take a stab at it in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Can you imagine hiring somebody and not using LinkedIn Jobs? That just doesn't make any sense. That's not an employee that I want. Because LinkedIn, they're gonna bring you the best guys or gals, no matter what. They're gonna be efficient. They're gonna be loyal. They're gonna be hardworking. All at LinkedIn Jobs. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. I can't imagine buying a ticket anywhere else. Because look, if you buy a ticket not through Game Time, you're going to spend more money. It's going to take more time. You may or may not know if you got the best deal. You're probably going to be questioning yourself a little bit. There's no need for any of that. So head over to Game Time, download the free Game Time app, and just take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I had a listener DM me today. They asked, is LOCKEDONCollege the code for Game Time? I'm like, yeah, it is. Yeah, you're so close. You're so close. Just jump in. Just jump in. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Brad, I guess like the question coming out of the bye week is where this team is mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the other like close losses, Cal, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, like Hugh Freeze has really credited the team as far as effort. He did not credit them with effort after Georgia. Yeah. Is that because it was the first road trip? Is it because they were getting beat pretty bad and they never really felt in it in the second half of the game? I don't know. But like keeping this team together through a bye week, I think the timing of this bye week at this, like going into the season, I liked it. Losing 3 games that I didn't think that they would lose kind of changes it a little bit. So to me, like I do think the coach management of this roster from like a morale standpoint, I do think that's important.
Yeah. Well, and he said, I don't know if he said it in his press conference. He said it on the radio post game Saturday night that he's going to coach them a little harder. That he said, we're going to find out who can be coached hard. He said, I've never coached a good player that didn't want to be coached hard. So, you know, we'll see what that means. I like the sound of it because, frankly, I think some of the mistakes that Auburn has made, they look to me like you could trace them back to maybe not quite a sharp enough or hard enough edge in preparation. Like by the time you get to the game, it's too late. It's too late to adjust, focus, hunger, effort. All that stuff is already decided. You've already made that decision to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Mm-hmm. So, you know, again, what does that mean? We'll find out. But yeah, if there's a little more of an edge from the head coach, a little more intensity from the head coach, maybe that trickles down and we see that. You know, guys who aren't focused and aren't bringing it, they may not see the field as much.
Well, yeah. And I said this going into the weekend, and I'll say this throughout the bye week. Like Auburn, they need to open up as many position battles as possible. Even if it's close, just let them have the position battles. And if guys hold on to their jobs, great. Let them feel pushed. Don't let anybody like take any kind of spot or positioning on the depth chart or pecking order for granted at this point, especially if they're an upperclassman. Give these freshmen a chance. Let them feel like they've got a chance for playing time and just see who steps up. I don't think that's a crazy thing at all. You're kind of limited with reps and all that and opportunity during the season. This is kind of the 1 week where you can open it up and maybe kind of rotate guys in and out a little bit more. And it also allows this coaching staff to sit back and go through everything that you've done so far this season and say, hey, this guy's only gotten, 20% of the reps, but the sample size is spectacular. Let's give this guy, a larger role. So I think we're going to see a lot of that, Brad, and I think it'll be good for the program. I also think that the fact you have 2 bye weeks, two open dates, means you can have 2 different philosophies in those open dates. You're still playing. I mean, you still got 6 games left. 8-4 is still on the table. You go win every one of them. Every one of the games is winnable. So you're still preparing to win your next game and to be the best team you can be in 2024. You are still, you're 100% still in that boat. Yeah. Now, if Auburn does it, let's say you go 1-2 over the next 3. Right. And now, of course, even in that spot, you could still win out to get to a bowl game. But let's say you go 0-3, and I wouldn't in a million years predict that. I don't think it's going to happen. But let's just say for the conversation, you went 0-3. Going into the second open date, well, now your discussion shifts to,
regardless of whether you think he's the best guy to help you win the next game, you play a few more of the freshmen no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm there with you.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. So, hey, Brad, how can people check out everything that you've got going on? Because it's a lot.
Well, AU Sports Network on social media. We'll get all of our stuff there. And then, of course, you can check out thebarnauburn.com.
Yeah.
Thebarnauburn.com and the Barn Auburn YouTube channel for Village Vice and all the other stuff that we've got going on there. We appreciate it and invite you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you guys are watching or listening, like, wow, those two guys, they really get along.
Yeah.
They have really good conversation. We do a show together, the two of us. Yeah. Village Vice, like Brad said, every or 3 times a week. So be sure to check that out. Like Brad said, The Barn on YouTube. Show's called Village Vice. So, hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.